still watching Signature Morning on Signature TV. Last month, President Tinubu ordered the immediate withdrawal of police officers assigned to provide security for VIPs as part of, moves to provide wider security overhaul after the escalating violence and kidnappings in the country. So this morning, we're going to explore the matters arising from that withdrawal of police officers from VIPs in Nigeria with Larry Ogwego, who is a human rights advocate with us in the studio this morning. You're very much welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you. Now, before we talk about this withdrawal, I would like to know what do you think about the idea of police officers being assigned to VIPs as, security personnel or security apparatus?
I think it's actually misplaced priority. I think it's a sign that we have failed to secure the space as a nation. It doesn't really make sense. It shows that we don't value the police officers. If we value them, if they are trained for securing the communities, then their priority should be to secure the entire community. And when the entire community is secured, everybody will be safe, including the VIPs. So I think it's misplaced priority that we got to a point where we isolate some persons and we assume they deserve security, and then the rest of the people do not deserve security. So it also shows the way we think as a people. So rather than focus on the primary job of the police, the job of the police is to, first of all, prevent crime, and then apprehend offenders. So the primary job of the police is not to arrest people, which is what we have reduced it to, or follow rich folks around, or politically exposed persons around. No. Their job is to prevent crime for everybody. The government has a duty to ensure the welfare and security of the people, the citizens, even people who are not citizens. So the community is supposed to be safe. The fact that we've degenerated to the extent that we assign people we consider more important than others. If you remember George Orwell's Animal Farm, all animals are supposed to be equal, but some are more equal than others. Yeah. So we have a situation where the people who are more equal now have the security assigned to them, and then the rest of us will just pray that God will protect us. So that tells you that we have a huge problem as a nation. It shouldn't be the case. People who want private security in advanced countries do one of two things. It's either you hire private security companies to protect you, or you make other arrangements that may not be based on physical human beings to protect yourself. Yes. So if we want people to be protected, we need to also look at the possibility of liberalizing the security framework to the extent that we should have operational private security companies. I mean, if we have descended to a level where an individual is protecting our pipelines, he has a private army so that he can protect our oil pipelines, and we pay him a fortune every month. He actually has, according to what we are told, he has a gunboat. He has the military armament that some nations don't have. So if we have allowed an individual to become that powerful because he's ostensibly protecting our pipelines, it means that we have reached the point where we should decentralize and regulate security. But as long as we don't do that, we are going to be having this problem where we have few police officers, and then we assign probably 40%, 50% to rich and politically exposed persons. They are security men, they open gates for people, open doors for people's wives, rather than go and do the work of policing. And that is partly why we have the level of insecurity we have.
So how has the attachment of thousands of police officers to VIPs affected the Nigerian security framework as well?
These are people who should be policing the communities. You know, if you go to Europe, if you go to most, even in Nigeria, when we were actually policing the environment, policemen had people on patrol duty. The people on patrol duty have the job of just maintaining police presence in different parts of the community. In fact, in some countries, they are so efficient that you have patrolmen on foot. They have patrolmen on bikes and then patrolmen in vehicles. So the job of the patrolmen is to maintain police presence, which actually deters crime. When you assign all of these men who should be on the beat to VIPs, what you have just basically done is to make it impossible for the police to have enough boots on the ground, as they say. If you want to put it simply, I will just tell you, I was the civil society team lead for the Nigerian policing program. We did a lot of work in terms of trying to figure out what exactly was wrong with policing, especially in the Southeast. And we found out at that time there were some police stations with only 11 persons. That's from the DPO all the way down to the lowest rank, 11. So 11 persons were supposed to provide security for probably an entire local government area. But the last time I checked, I realized that at that time, a police station had 11 persons manning the entire local government area space or more. Some individuals had 20 police officers attached to them. So how does that make sense? It's the police officers that should make the whole environment safe for everybody, including the VIP, that you take away, give to the VIP, and then the whole space becomes so unsafe that the VIP calls for more security personnel. So we are standing security on its head. What we should do is to make the environment safe. If the environment is safe, if the communities are safe, the VIPs will not need extra security. That's the truth. But because our communities are unsafe, because we have not actually placed the priority of securing the community first, that we have commercialized policing. So if you don't have money, you can't buy security. And then the situation is so bad now that we are not even talking about securing the poor man, securing the ordinary man. We secure only the rich and powerful. And as long as we continue to do that, it will get worse. Because as long as you leave, what is the effect? The effect that you leave spaces that are unpoliced, ungoverned. And then the criminal elements will dominate those spaces. And when they dominate those spaces, they can actually attack even the person you are protecting with your so-called VIP protection. They can attack and overwhelm them. How did some of these criminal elements get weapons? They attacked undermanned police stations. We know the story in the Southeast. So when they see a police station with only 10, 11 persons, they will attack the station, overwhelm them, and take their weapons, because it was cheaper for them to attack those stations and take weapons than to go and buy one gun for millions. In the course of attacking those stations, they not only killed police officers with family and friends, I mean, people we trained with a lot of resources, they also take away weapons procured by the government. So when you assign police officers to the so-called VIPs, the implication is that you're actually distorting and disrupting the entire space. And in any case, who is actually a VIP? As far as the Constitution is concerned, we are all VIPs. We are all Nigerians. We are supposed to enjoy welfare and security. This concept of VIP gives the impression that some of us are just there to complete the numbers for elections. And that's not true, because some of the people you call VIPs now, 10 years ago, they were like us. Probably they were less valuable to society, not even as much as some of us. So the concept of VIP is an aberration. In a normal space, in a normal country where people value citizens, you don't say this is a VIP and this is just a mere mortal that can die and then it doesn't matter to you. I think we need to reinvent security, and we need to understand the consequences of assigning security personnel to few persons. Because when we disrupt that space, even the few persons will not be safe. Why can't those persons that have security, why can't they travel by road from Abuja to Enugu? They will not try with all the police escort, because they know that when the bad boys descend on them, they will overcome the security men. So they fly. And it distorts so many things. You were asking about the effect. The economic impact is terrible. Because I know that some of these guys will fly to the southeast, and then police officers will drive empty vehicles from Abuja to the southeast to follow them around. That's the economic effect. Some of them will have to move with 6 cars. So if a public officer or a politician has to move with 6 cars in a convoy for security purposes, it means that he's actually fueling 6 cars for one journey. He's taking 20, 30 personnel for one journey. And that is colossal economic waste. Who pays that? Nigeria does. You do. Your tax money pays. So you can't begin to really analyze the consequences beyond the security, direct security impacts. We have other, the wastage is terrible. The wastage is terrible. Just the cars alone, you are replicating 6 vehicles. You are fueling them. You are maintaining them just for one person to move around. But when we understand the colossal cost of assigning policemen to people who we think are politically exposed persons or the rich, then we'll be asking ourselves, what are the alternatives? There's one simple alternative: secure the entire space. If you secure the entire space, then everybody will be happy, everybody will be safe, including the rich man.
So now, looking at this issue, I mean, this degeneration of the security and the police and these misplaced priorities, where would you say that all of this stem from, or what would you say is the root cause of these misplaced priorities to the point where our policemen have been degenerated to the level of being personal bodyguards to certain individuals?
I think there are 2 major issues. For me personally, we have 2 critical issues there. One is what we call corruption. When people become corrupt, one is that they take what doesn't belong to them. They form new lifestyles they cannot afford. So they begin to look for how to maintain those lifestyles. And when this happens, they begin to do things they shouldn't ordinarily do. That's why you can get, I said you now, you can get police escorts, even now, after the presidential pronouncement, if you have enough money. That aspect is corruption. So corruption drives a lot of evil. When people get to that point where everything is monetized, where there is a price for everything, then the nation is in trouble. Because we talk about VIPs. We know a lot of people who are not VIPs who buy police protection. There are people who are actually crooks, criminals who buy police protection. And I say this with all sense of responsibility because there was a time somebody was involved in pension scam in Nigeria. The police declared him wanted, and the police also were protecting him. It was in public space. That's the same man that was wanted by the police was being escorted by the police. So I was asking, why shouldn't police just arrest him? If the same police, you watch television, they said he's wanted, you arrest him and take him to your boss. So how does that work? It's corruption. So there is the corruption element, and that's a very powerful element, because if you have enough money, you can buy police protection. If you don't have money, you won't get it. Now, ordinarily, the police is supposed to deploy protection to where it is needed. I'll give you an example. If a person who is very wealthy, for instance, is maybe having some kind of celebration in his village, in those days, we used to spray money. So the police may be able to do some intelligence gathering and say, okay, because a lot of rich persons will come, and they will bring a lot of money. These people may be attacked in the night, so we should protect the environment because of the number of rich persons that will come there, the kind of money they will bring into the space, so let us protect the space. The police should sit down and analyze security needs and provide it. You don't have to go and beg them. But the way Nigeria works now is that you have an event or a wedding or something that you need security. You go to the police, they won't come to you. If you inform them, they will give you a bill. They will tell you how much you will pay, that you have to make sure they have enough food, you have to bring their petrol, you have to pay this to the police and pay this per person. So there's no difference between the way they will charge you and the way the private security companies will charge you for the bouncers. Absolutely no difference. But the last time I checked, there are the people who are even supposed to come and inform you that because of the profile of guests you are expecting, they will even be advising you, this is what you will do, this is how you will do it. That's not what we do anymore. So corruption, the inordinate ambition to make money, is a major factor. But then there's also another factor. You know, we also reached a point where our value system, people want to demonstrate that they are doing well. Sometimes, even when they are not. There is something you call status symbol. Most of us do not want to look at the factor that some people who hire policemen do not hire them for protection. They hire them as status symbol. They want to show that they have also made money. They don't want to stand on the queue when they are traveling. So when they get to that checkpoint, the policeman in front of the car says, "Esprit de corps," and then they pass. So sometimes not for security. A lot of people I know who have police officers do not need security. I will tell you something that will surprise you. As we speak in this studio, there is a man who applied and paid and hired 2 police officers ostensibly to protect his business premises at Abuja. Those policemen are in his house opening gates and harassing his wife because he has a domestic issue with his wife. So he's using police to fight a domestic battle. I know because we got involved in the matter. That's I mean now, even with the pronouncement. So we have initiated the process to remove those 2 police officers. But I would have expected that, considering that they were doing this in the FCT, that after that pronouncement, they will say, "Oh, they will, they will sanction us. So come back, come back, come back." They are still there. As of this morning, they are there. So that tells you that people hire these policemen for diverse reasons. How did we get here? You are traveling to Onitsha. It should take you 1 hour 10 minutes, but because of checkpoints, it takes you 3 hours. If you hire the police, it will take you 1 hour 10 minutes. So you can drive on the right, left, drive anyhow. They will see police officers. They will open the barricade for you. You pass. So there's a corruption element. There's a lifestyle element. There is the "we have arrived" element. There's also the element of those who live dubious lifestyles, so they don't want people coming around to look at what they are doing. So they protect themselves with police. In fact, a lot of people who do dubious businesses in Nigeria, who are very wealthy, actually acquire police protection. So you don't come near them to find out what they're doing. If you want to arrest him as a police officer, he will know before you come because he has police protection. So there are many dimensions to this. And unfortunately, these dimensions make it difficult for the policemen to work professionally. Because if I want to go and arrest a criminal, and then I see policemen at his gate, and they tell me I cannot enter because they have a mandate to protect him. By the time I finish negotiating with those policemen, he would have either escaped or made arrangements for to be able to manage the actions I want to take. So there are so many reasons why we do these things. When we begin to respect the rule of law, that's the sum of this whole thing. That's when we begin to play by the rules as a people, from the president to the most ordinary person. When we learn to play by the rules, all of these things will minimize, at least maybe stop. But as long as we have different rules for different people, it's not going to stop anytime soon. And as long as we also use some of these things to impress people, we actually count as, that's when we're discussing those who are wealthy and those who are not. We say, do you know that he has police escort? So it's one of the parameters for saying, oh, he has a lot of money, he has police escort. How you get the police escort is immaterial. Whether you have a lot of money or not, if you pay, they will give you police escort. So that is the challenge we have to deal with. It's a hydra-headed monster, in the sense that, how did we get here? We have a lot of issues we must deal with if we're going to come out of this situation. So unfortunately, we're not even dealing with it.
The withdrawal of these police officers really also increase and improve our public safety, or is this just another policy that will just fade away with time?
First of all, they have not been withdrawn. They told us that they withdraw about 11,000. And that's a very small number compared to the reality. And I just told you that I know 2 that are still at the gate in Abuja, in FCT, not in Enugu. You see, when the president says withdraw police officers serving the rich or the politically exposed persons or the VIP, that is what he said. He's one person sitting in one place called Asorok. And then even the IG will make a lot of noise and say, withdraw. If you don't withdraw, there will be sanctions, there will be consequences. He's also one person sitting in one place called Police Headquarters, Force Headquarters, Abuja. There is corruption that is so deep in Nigeria, especially in the police, that if they begin to obey all of these directives, they cannot maintain their lifestyle. There's somebody who is practically selling police security, and that's how he sustains his lifestyle. And because we made one announcement at Abuja, he will now withdraw his children from private schools. It doesn't work that way. You know. He will find ways to cover up. I mean, okay, who will tell the IG that he has not withdrawn them? He's a human being. Who will be sent to monitor? A human being. Is he a Nigerian? Yes. Is he corrupt? Most likely. You see, if you have withdrawn only 11,000, you have not started. They said 11,000 plus, which means the IG probably withdrew those that were under his immediate command. But I just told you that within FCT, 2 police officers are serving somebody who has no business at all having public police. They are standing at the gate as I speak now, without uniform, without name tag, without evidence that they are police officers, except those miserable T-shirts they wear. So when you look at this pattern, you find out that it's not about directives. It's about enforcement of directives. It's about consequences for non-compliance. One of the institutions that find it extremely difficult to enforce their own directives is the Nigerian police because of the level of corruption. I say this with all sense of responsibility because I have related with them. They know. They know that I know. So you cannot say withdraw and then you go home. If we want to make it work, it has to become a crusade. They have to not only say it, they have to recruit us. When I say us, I mean all of us. They should say, if you know a person who is using police who shouldn't use it, call this number. They should make it a real national crusade. And even then, if you call that number, if that number is properly settled, the number will not transmit your call. They will not say, oh, what a call to say that person is still there.
So is there any solution to this? Because obviously all the possible solutions are still going to be crippled by this issue of corruption at one point or the other. So do you even see the possibility of this thing being solved or these policemen actually being withdrawn from all the VIPs?
For me, if we want to improve policing, one of the things we must do is to withdraw policemen from VIPs. But that's not even the big problem. If we want to improve policing in Nigeria and to improve security, we have to create a template that will hold security officers, including police officers, accountable. Presently, we are not doing that. You see, if you don't deal with the fundamental problems, you cannot solve the bigger problems. In mathematics, there's something we call the first principle, solving the problem from first principle. You have to start from the beginning. If you make pronouncements, you know that the system is corrupt. You know that people don't take instructions. You know that they do what they like. They don't really give a hoot about the things you say. If you don't deal with that attitude, and you're making more pronouncements, you're actually wasting your time. That's the truth. It sounds good that the president said, oh, withdraw the police from VIPs. The former IGP said, oh, this is fantastic. This is the first time a president is saying that. Before, IGs used to say it, IGPs used to say it, but it never worked. So imagine an Inspector General of Police retired saying that we tried. I tried to do it. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because the politicians practically ignored him. Come and take my own now. Let's see how you remain there. So that's the attitude. So if we don't solve certain problems, impunity, corruption, connection as the parameter for leadership, so you create a rule. I will withdraw politicians. I will draw security details from politicians. And one politician will tell you, don't come near my household. Unless, remember that somebody put you there. So you now weigh your options. Do I want to remain the IGP or do I want to succumb to this threat? Most Nigerians will succumb to the threat. Because if you make the mistake of insisting that you carry out that, your withdrawal, some people may put through some course and they'll just leave the person. These things have happened in the past. So we are not a serious-minded nation when it comes to playing by the rules. And as long as we don't deal with these fundamentals, these solutions will not work. You see, I can keep discussing the withdrawal of the police from VIPs. And then I'm not being a pessimist. I'm just saying that is the practical thing to do. Very soon we'll forget too. That is, in the next 1 month, we'll forget the directive. And those who lost their officers, we'll get them back. They said that people who want protection should go to civil defense corps and get protection. How many civil defense corps members have you seen policing people? I mean, you see them. yourselves. I mean, we're Nigerians. How many have you seen? Nobody actually took the directive. Nobody is taking Mr. President serious on that. Why? Because the system is entrenched. Money has exchanged hands and keeps exchanging hands. These people are not only paid to provide the police officers, they pay the police officers allowances every day for doing that work. So it's a web of corruption that actually sustains lifestyles that cannot ordinarily be afforded by the people in that sector if they don't do that. So the president can talk. I wish him luck. It's difficult to enforce these things. I think we need to have leaders in Nigeria who will first of all start with transforming themselves. You see, the problem with all of these things we are discussing is that you can't give what you don't have. If we want to change an environment, first of all, you look at yourself. If you want to say you shouldn't be corrupt, play by the rules, you ask yourself one simple question: am I corrupt? Am I playing by the rules? As long as we live in a country where people do one thing and tell you to do another, it will not work. So the challenge we have is not that the president gave a directive. Go and check. A lot of people have not obeyed that directive. The VIPs are still walking around, driving around with police officers. What has happened to them? Nothing. The senator started shouting, you can't take our own, that, you know, we're at risk. Who is not at risk? I'm at risk also, you are. People can't travel by road anymore, not to Abuja, not to Lagos, not to Benin, not to anywhere. So we are all at risk. But they started using their privileged position in the chamber to discuss the fact that they're at risk, that you cannot take our police. So after them, then House of Reps will say, oh, we're at risk. Commissioners will say we're at risk. Political appointees, we are trying. Finally, everybody is at risk. So nobody will lose his own police escort. We need to get to that point where we tell ourselves the truth. What we need to do is to ask a simple question. How do we provide security for everybody, so everybody will be safe? How do we secure the community, the environment, so that we all enjoy security? I mean, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris, actually used to go shopping on a bicycle in his neighborhood, bicycle, as a Prime Minister. It's not, I mean, my brother some time ago told me that he rode on a train with an ex-Prime Minister in the United Kingdom. Train. In Nigeria, if you're a local government chairman, when you finish, you don't use public transport, and ordinary mortals won't get near you. But you see a former Prime Minister of one of the G7 countries sitting in a train, and he just has two security details without uniform, without pump action, without AK-47. Just two, like they are like friends. They walk with him, talk with him. You won't know the security details until maybe you move towards him in a certain way. The point I'm making is we have not understood security. Security is not about the number of men that follow you. It's not about the muzzle on the chest of the men. Security is first of all intelligence-led. And the countries that are most secure, you don't see weapons when you're on the streets. Even in Africa, I was in Kenya a few months ago. They had issues with Al-Shabaab and all of that. They beefed up security, but you don't see the security men. I discuss some of these things. You notice that there's more security. You come to a good hotel, you have the scan there. They are very cautious about it. You have Secret Service men, but you don't see uniforms. They don't want tourists to be scared that this place is insecure. So they beefed up the security, but you don't see the security. Exactly. That is the essence of security. Sorry, but I need to say this before we proceed. I've had the privilege of talking to security operatives. I've conducted training. I've been with the military. I've been with the police. One of the things I tell them is that the very way they try to secure us increases insecurity. How do I mean? Sometimes I'm driving on the streets of this our Enugu, and then I'm in traffic, and then a policeman is sitting on a truck with his gun leveled like this, and I just suddenly realized that gun is practically pointing on my head, and I actually give them a sign, say, "Oh God, remove that thing from my head." At that point, I was feeling insecure. That thing can discharge you. Something can happen, and my head will just explode. So the very presence of too many armed personnel makes people feel insecure. Some time ago, a friend came back from Europe with their wife to celebrate Christmas. They went to Oka. Let me not mention the name of the hotel. too many VIPs were in the hotel. It was like a military zone. Soldiers, policemen everywhere. The woman said, I can't stay here. She not only left the hotel, she left the country the next day. She said there's a problem in this country. And that everywhere people were carrying guns. Some of the military had grasses tied on their head, which means we're at war. So the woman said, no, something is wrong. I'm not joking. That's how the holiday ended. We have to get out of here. We have to get out of here.
All right, Mr. Ogwego. Now, I learned that the task force is going round to, derank police officers who are found not, in their duty post or following VIPs and the likes. Now, do you think that this is actually a serious move to make sure that these policemen are, are abiding by what the president has said, or would you say it's still a case of window dressing?
This will fizzle out. It's not only window dressing, it won't. You see, I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just saying that you cannot treat symptoms of an illness and the illness will go. Now, when you treat symptoms of an illness, listen carefully. If you treat the symptoms will leave you alone for a while. And it will look as if you are well. But because you have not treated the real cause of the illness, the symptoms will come back. In other words, what the president is doing is that he's treating the symptoms. If we want to do a security reform in Nigeria, we need to do a whole lot of things. The policemen that he's asking to be withdrawn from VIPs so that they will now provide security for the communities, do they really provide security for us? Let's even ask that question. They don't. Sorry, but I have to be blunt here. I have 1,001 cases that we treated in our offices. The police spend more of their time hunting down victims that they will extort money from than they spend policing the space. I stand to be corrected. Get any policeman here, I will explain with statistics, with data, with specific cases. Now, let me say this. Every policeman has 24 hours in a day. You don't have extra time. Out of that 24 hours, let's say you work with 10 hours. If you invest 6 hours recovering debt from a person who gave you money because he has a case with a neighbor in the market and all of that, you have spent the time you should be using to map the security situation and protect the people from crime. In other words, for every time you use doing what is not policing, you are shortchanging policing. Policing is not about standing on the road. It's about doing undercover work. That's why you have criminal investigation department. You have SIIB. You have people supposed to do undercover work. There are policemen who don't wear uniforms. They're supposed to gather intelligence. They're supposed to go to places where criminals meet and talk. I'm a layman, I'm not a police officer. But I get calls from concerned citizens that MNA is full of, MNA here in Enugu is full of what we call bunks, where people smoke Indian hemp and drugs. If I know as a layman, and I ask people who call us on our hotline, do you know the location? They say, yes, it's on the street, we know. Are you telling me that the police doesn't know? Are you telling me that the NDLEA doesn't know? So how come they allow those places to exist indefinitely? This is a challenge to them. See, I don't think the number of the boots on the ground is the only factor that will improve security or policing. What quality of boots are you putting on the ground? Are they committed to policing? Are they going to use the boots on the ground to extort more money from us? So I think we need to solve all of the problems. While it is good to bring policemen out from non-essential duties and then channel them towards essential duties, the big question becomes, are they going to focus on the essential duties? Are they going to just mount roadblocks and collect money from us? And I don't see how that has provided any security. As a matter of fact, those activities reduce the confidence of the people in the policing institutions. And when there's that reduction of confidence, people do not even give them information or go to them. They should go to them to say, somebody is planning to do something. They will ask you, how do you know? Stand behind the counter here. You tell us, how did you even meet those people? What are you doing with them? Are you sure you're not one of them? Because at every opportunity, many of these guys are looking for how to get money from you. With all due respect, to have good police officers, have interfaced with them, they are not happy with the way some things are done. But the truth is that there's a culture of corruption, there's a culture of protecting errant officers, there's a culture of covering up for crime and bad behavior. So reducing the number of policemen that are on non-essential duty will not really change much until we begin to reform the mindset of the policing institution. Presently, I think they spend more energy doing what is not their work. I know, I'm not just thinking. They spend more energy dealing with civil matters, land cases. In the southeast, you go to police station, they are discussing land cases, they are doing marital cases, they are doing debt recovery. If somebody is owing you, you go and tell the police will say, let me write the petition for you. Say that when you went to collect the money, the man started pursuing you with a gun, so it will become a police case. These are things I have seen. You know, so we need to begin to ask ourselves, is it just about the number, or is it also about the quality? I think it's about both the number and the quality. We may have the number, but I don't think we'll have the quality the way we're going, because we're focusing too much on the number. We're not thinking about the quality. We're not thinking about the quality of services that are rendering to us. So I think Mr. President will do well to not only talk about the withdrawal, but also ask us, how are they policing your space, especially in the southeast? Is there any real policing going on? Can we call police officers and they respond immediately? I mean, Benin Republic ostensibly requested for help from our military. In hours, we deployed successfully and put down a mutiny. Can I call my DPO and in a few minutes, because my house is probably 5 minutes drive away, and in 10 minutes he will respond? The answer is no. We know the answer is no. So unless we're able to get to that point where I will call a security operative and the person will respond immediately with the intention to solve a problem for a citizen, because that's why he was hired, that's why he's paid. Until we get to that point where they have that commitment to us, we are wasting our time. Even if we hire 1 million of them, we will just have 1 million more problems.
Right. Now, earlier on we mentioned that the VIPs, have been told to seek the services of the civil defense, and you also mentioned private security services as well. Now, do you think that there will be any risks, that could arise if a significant number of these VIPs now shift towards the other security personnel, like the civil defense or other private security groups in Nigeria?
Well, I think if we are saying they should get personnel from civil defense, we should also ask ourselves, do they have enough personnel to even give them? How many officers do we have in the civil defense corps? How many of them are trained to handle weapons? Because I know that it's not every person that works for the civil defense that is trained to handle weapons. So you cannot be an effective protection if you are not trained to handle weapons. And that's why you don't see a lot of people from the civil defense corps protecting, even after the president's directive. They are understaffed, and not too many of them can handle weapons. And then we don't have properly licensed private security companies that carry weapons for the purpose of protecting people. We have not reached that stage. We have people who open gates. We call them security men. They are not security men. They open gates. We call them gate man. That's what they should be called, not security men, because they don't have weapons. They don't understand security. They just open your gate and close it. They wear fancy uniforms. Now, if we want to get into the process of creating private security companies, that's a different kettle of fish. What we have that is close to private security companies, the vigilante groups. If you go to a place like Anambra State, I can use that as a case study because I've been there during Christmas. You find out that a lot of rich men actually use the vigilante and not the police. That's, they have their own Hilux, Toyota Hilux or some other brand of truck. And then they buy sophisticated weapons. And then you see men tying bandana, looking terrible sometimes, covering their faces, being his own escort. In fact, some of these men actually pack their trucks after Christmas, like their 2 trucks, probably withdraw the weapons and then keep them for the next Christmas. So they have their own private army. That's how you know a country that is failing. There are symptoms of a failing state and a failed state. That's when people have to provide their own security. It means that the state is failing. Because one of the reasons that we have a nation is that people surrender certain things to the nation. We pay taxes. We obey the people who are elected to lead us. Then in exchange, they provide security. They provide welfare. They protect us from external aggression. They protect us from internal security challenges. But the way Nigeria is working now, you have to pay the taxes. In fact, the taxes have increased, but also the insecurity has increased. So you pay the taxes, yet you have to protect yourself. You have to get your own security. In fact, you have to get your own water. You have to get your own electricity. You see, when you surrender your powers as an individual to the government and contribute money to the government, called taxes, you expect that they should provide certain things to you, including public utilities. That's why in those advanced countries, taxes are high and you must pay. It's almost a cardinal sin to evade tax. But then you're enjoying the proceeds, you're enjoying the benefits of paying those taxes. So you have perfect utilities, you have security, you have, I mean, for minor issues, if you hear an explosion, you don't know the source of the explosion, you just make a call. The security agents will come there in a few minutes. That's somebody will get there probably in 3 minutes to ask, so ma'am, what is it? So the idea is that they are there to protect you. You can feel the protection. And even if it happens to anybody, you notice that the state will go to extreme to find out what happened. They can investigate one murder case for 10 years. Not in Nigeria. I mean, our own federal minister of justice, VIP, politically exposed person, was in his house. Today we can't say who killed him, and we are not bothered about it. So we have fundamental problems with the way we think about security. We need to begin to reinvent, especially in the light of what is happening in Nigeria. We need to reinvent the entire security architecture. And reinventing it shouldn't be about just buying weapons, buying equipment, and then putting more boots on the ground. Reinventing it should actually start with, how do we ensure that when we hire people and equip them, that they will do the job? It's a very simple question. Because as it is now, the people that we have hired are not doing the job. Especially when you are focusing on the police. I'm not discussing military now, I'm discussing the police. They spend more time doing anything but the job. Okay. So we need to ask that question too. Should we buy equipment? Yes. Should we buy cars and all of that for logistics? Yes. Should we hire more police officers? Yes. But before we do all that, we must answer one fundamental question. How do we ensure that even as we invest all of these resources, that these things will improve security? You live in Enugu, probably, you know a lot of people who live in Enugu. Go out and ask them. We invested a lot of money installing cameras in Enugu. Do you think the cameras have improved security? I don't want to answer. You ask the man in Enugu.
All right, so what other decisions should be taken? What long-term solutions should we move forward in order to keep this reform in place and not just fade away with time, just in a nutshell?
First of all, short-term solutions. Long-term solutions. I think we need to consistently look at the quality of men and women who join the police. Even when people who don't have the level of commitment, passion for policing that we want, even when the wrong person join, we should have a training regimen that will break them and make them conform or quit. The biggest challenge we have is that the space is too corrupt. The space is too, it's not regimented the way it ought to be. Like the military, if you are a military personnel, there is a minimum standard of conduct that's expected of you. I'm not the public relations man, but I know that it's easier for me, for instance, to hold a soldier accountable than it is to hold a policeman accountable. From my practical experience, if I report a soldier for doing something wrong at 82 deep, in fact, on one occasion I reported, and in less than 20 minutes, they brought all the soldiers to the office of the provost. If you go to the police, everybody will try to cover everybody, except few who have conscience, who think we should do better. So I think we need to address that fundamental problem, and we should keep addressing it. It's not something you address and stop, because like I said, people have already built lifestyles around corruption, around not going to work and being paid, around not being transferred. There are police officers who will work in one place for 10 years. If you transfer them, they will arrange and come back there because there's something they kept there. You see, as long as policing is done like that, we may not be able to make progress. But there are some police officers who shouldn't also transferred. transfer. Because maybe you have trained them to do a special duty in a special location. We don't go and transfer them 2 days after that special training. So all of these things are things we should sit down and sort out. We need to tell ourselves the truth. It's not about just equipment and numbers. I think it's first of all about human beings. It is people that manage equipment. It is people that make choices and actually solve problems. So we need to ask ourselves, what quality of boots are we putting on the ground? And then how do we improve the system? How do we hold the police accountable? I will summarize by telling you something that will surprise you. If this doesn't surprise you, I don't think anything will. The police are actually telling us all the time that if you see something, say something, that they cannot fish out corrupt officers if we don't identify them. I personally wrote a proposal to the police that I can help you minimize corruption. How? That we will put a sign in front of every police station telling people the numbers to call if anybody asks them for money for bail or behaves in a way that is unwholesome. The police refused. I said, at no cost to the police, we'll put billboards in front of police stations saying, if anybody asks you for money for bail, call this number. If anybody does so and so and so, call this number. The police refused. So does that tell you that we're going anywhere? Free help. If there's any reason why you think you don't want it, let us know. No reply. So it's an institution that is thriving on doing what is wrong or what is self-serving. So even when you want to help them improve, they refuse the help. Why? Because that your help will reduce their illicit income. That's just the plain truth. I'm saying it publicly because I have a copy of that. I've written twice to the IG after writing them, no reply. I went to police headquarters myself, no reply. So if the president wants to make pronouncement, he should also pronounce on this one. Let us have the capacity to hold them accountable for their conduct. I'm not impressed with all this window dressing. That's what you called it. Beautiful window dressing. We need to address the core issues, and that is the heart of the police officers. Are they really focusing on policing, or are they, like many Nigerians, focusing on what they'll get out of the space, legally or illegally? That is the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is not whether they are 100 or 120. That is part of the problem. But that's not. The elephant in the room is, if you get 1 million, how are they going to behave? If they don't behave well, we'll have 1 million problems. So you may be better off with fewer policemen than more policemen who will not get the job done. I'm not kidding. Because if you bring all of them and you don't train them, you don't hold them accountable, we'll have more persons extorting money from us. So if we are training them, if we are sort of recruiting them, buying them cars, buying them guns, we should also insist that we should create a system that will enable the ordinary citizen to hold them accountable, to use those things for our benefit.
Right. Thank you so much, Larry, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Larry
My pleasure and privilege.
joined us to talk about the withdrawal of police officers from VIPs in Nigeria, and this is on the matters arising. If you're just joining us, you can also watch that conversation on our YouTube channel. Like, share, and always drop your comments in the comment section. Thank you for joining us once again, Larry. Larry Ogwego is a human rights advocate and joined us in the studio for this particular subject matter. This is where we draw the curtains for Signature Morning Enugu as we are moving over to the Abuja studios. I am Queen Slave Roland.
I am Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. Have a nice day.